What if Willow joined Stargate Command? Welcome back to an extraordinary journey. Season 2, Episode 8. Stargate Command, 1800 hours. Stargate Command, Faith asked, matching Willow's brisk pace as they navigated the maze of underground corridors. Yup, Willow replied. Stargate, Faith repeated, her skepticism growing. Yup, Willow smiled. Stargate, Faith muttered, shaking her head disbelievingly. Yep, Willow nodded, her eyes twinkling. Also known as the doorway to heaven. Captain Rosenberg to General O'Neill's office. Walter's voice echoed sharply through the PA system. Captain Rosenberg to General O'Neill's office. That's you, I guess, Faith noted, her gaze alternating between Willow and the heavily armed personnel patrolling the hallways or guarding the closed doors they passed. Yep, Willow agreed, giving her a gentle nudge. And that includes you too. So, what can you tell me about this place? Faith asked, looking around curiously as she slipped her hands into her pockets. It's honestly the coolest place to work, Willow explained enthusiastically. There are labs, armories, gyms, a mess hall, offices, quarters for both civilian and base personnel, a fully stocked infirmary, locker rooms, and tons of other stuff. She paused, pointing up at the overhead pipes. Water is piped in from a reservoir. She then gestured toward the vents lining the walls, and air is drawn from the surface and put through intense chemical, biological, and radiological filters to make sure nothing harmful gets through. Faith took it all in, unable to manage anything more than a stunned, "Cool." And here we are, Faith, Willow announced, turning toward a door at the end of an open hallway that led into a larger room, General O'Neill's office. Willow reached out to knock, but she caught the sound of him talking animatedly on the phone inside. Not wanting to interrupt, she guided Faith into the adjacent briefing room instead. Through the large glass window looking into O'Neill's office, she caught the general's eye and signaled that they had arrived. While they waited, Faith examined the room. She noticed a massive window at the far end, currently obscured by a heavy steel blast door. In the center of the room sat a long, distinctive red conference table. This is where I first appeared, Faith, Willow admitted with a slight wince, rubbing her shoulder as she recalled the impact. I dropped smack down onto the middle of that table while these guys were right in the middle of a meeting, right before I lost consciousness. Man, I would have done anything to see their faces, Faith chuckled. She wandered over to the metal stairway at the back of the room, crouching down at the top of the stairs to peer down. Below, she could see personnel moving about in a hurry. Standing back up, she remarked, "Looks real busy down there." "Yeah," Willow nodded knowingly. "That's the operations center for everything we do. But we'll get to that later. I think General O'Neill is about ready for us." Just then, O'Neill hung up the phone and stepped out of his office into the briefing room. "Good evening, sir," Willow greeted him. "Hiya," Faith added with a casual wave. "So, did ya enjoy yourself today?" the general asked, directing a warm look at Faith. "Oh yeah," Faith replied easily. "Everything's awesome so far." "Sweet," the general said. He turned his attention back to Willow. "All right, Red, you should get yourself and Faith here down to the infirmary for a checkup. I believe Dr. Brightman has your report from the initial testing Dr. Beckett ran." "Anything bad, sir?" Willow asked, a hint of worry creeping into her voice. "You know she won't tell me a thing before telling you, Red," the general countered with a smirk. "All right, kids, off you go to see the doc. While you're down there, I'll round up SG-1 and we'll all sit down here to start the official briefing." "Yes, sir," Willow said. As they turned to leave, Faith frowned slightly. "Why do I even need to get a checkup?" "It's routine," O'Neill explained. "Whenever we have visitors or new employees at SGC, they always get cleared by medical first. Besides, Red here is already way overdue for hers." "Let's go, Faith," Willow urged, guiding her companion back down into the corridor. They headed straight for the elevator, hitting the button for level 21, where the infirmary waited. Infirmary SGC. "Hey, Doc," Willow said, nodding at Dr. Brightman as she and Faith strolled into the infirmary through the double doors. "Good evening, Captain," Brightman replied, before turning her focus to the brunette. "And you must be Miss Lehane." Yeah, but you can call me Faith. Brightman nodded, signaling to a nearby colleague. Faith, Dr. Miller here will be conducting your intake checkup while I handle Captain Rosenberg. All right, Faith muttered, following Miller over to the adjacent bed. Once they arrived, a nurse wheeled in a portable x-ray machine along with some other medical equipment, promptly pulling the privacy curtain around the bed. You all right, Faith? Willow called out, her voice laced with concern. Yep, Faith called back. Just so you know, if anything embarrassing happens to me, you'll be paying for it later on. If you say so, Willow replied with a grin, causing Brightman to chuckle. With Miller now examining Faith, Brightman focused completely on Willow, her expression shifting to one of professional concern as she evaluated the injury to the captain's vocal cords. A nurse brought a tray of medical equipment to Willow's bedside, placing the rolling table next to Brightman before drawing the privacy curtain around them. All right, Captain, how do you feel? Asked Brightman. Your vocal cords, I mean. Colonel Carter told me what happened and that your voice returned after she used the healing device. Any signs of scratchiness or pain in your throat? No, Willow replied, though her tone was hesitant. But my voice is still so Clint Eastwoody. It's kinda strange. I'll run a scan, but it could be months before your original voice returns. If it ever does, the doctor explained gently. But no matter what, you still have to be careful about how you use it. Try not to shout or scream, at least until your throat has completely healed. Can I still go off-world though? Willow asked nervously, just before Brightman signaled for the redhead to open her mouth wide. I don't see a problem, the doctor mumbled, peering inside. But if you feel dizzy or experience any issues, you have to come see me immediately. Understood? Yes, ma'am, Willow managed to say. It took about an hour before Willow's checkup was completed. As they waited for Faith to finish her physical, Brightman asked Willow to meet her in her office on the far side of the infirmary. Moments later, Willow found herself sitting anxiously across the desk from Brightman, who was quietly reviewing a manila folder. What's up, Doc? Willow asked, her eyes flickering nervously from the doctor's face to the file and then back again. The general told me that you received the results of my blood test? Yes, I have, the doctor said seriously. You know about Dr. Beckett's theory regarding the ancient chair device in Antarctica and how it can only be activated by someone who possesses the same genetic markers as the ancients. Yeah, Willow said, nodding intently. He calls it the ATA or the Ancient Technology Activation Gene, Dr. Brightman explained, placing the file on the desk between them. It basically acts as a genetic key so that only ancients or their direct descendants can operate that technology. He believes that the gene is always active, instructing the cells in the body to release specific enzymes and proteins that interact with the skin, the nervous system, and the brain. Ultimately, this allows someone with the gene to operate the technology through pure thought. Okay, Willow said, processing the information. So I guess General O'Neill has the gene, since he sat on the chair and it activated. You have the gene too, Brightman revealed, handing Willow a printout from the file. Willow furrowed her eyebrows as she skimmed the pages, her eyes finally settling on one particular line. ATA gene, positive. Whoa, Willow breathed, her face lighting up with surprise. That's cool. I guess that means I can control the chair too. In an emergency. There's another thing, Captain, Brightman added, pointing to a separate section on the report. Your blood work also shows the presence of an unidentified protein marker. Unidentified, Willow asked, her excitement instantly fading into nervousness. How is that possible? I don't know, the doctor admitted, shaking her head with a frown. I've spoken to Dr. Beckett, and he's just as puzzled. What we do agree on is that it's completely unlike the protein marker left behind in Colonel Carter after the Tok'ra symbiote Jolinar died to save her life. Should I be worried about this? Willow asked, shifting uncomfortably in her chair. Well, you stated that you haven't felt anything unusual or exhibited any odd medical symptoms, so I don't think it possesses a danger in the immediate future. However, I highly recommend running more tests on your blood, Dr. Brightman advised. Anytime, Doc, Willow agreed, nodding with relief. We'll draw another sample a month from now, the doctor said, rising from her desk to lead Willow back to the main ward. Stepping through the office doors, Willow noticed that Faith was already finished, sitting casually on the edge of her bed. Your physical is done, I take it? Willow asked, approaching her. Yep, Faith said, rubbing her upper left arm with a grimace. Damn, they really like poking and prodding around here, don't they? And I swear Dr. Miller used the longest needles I've ever seen to take my blood. Willow chuckled, shrugging her shoulders lightheartedly. It's standard procedure around here. You never know what you might bring back through the gate, or, you could just have the good old-fashioned flu from Earth. Suddenly, Walter's voice echoed loudly over the PA system. SG-1 report to the briefing room. SG-1 report to the briefing room. That's us, Willow said alertly as Faith hopped off the bed. The captain and the Slayer stepped toward the exit, with Willow waving over her shoulder at the physician. See you later, Doc. Remember what I told you, Captain, the doctor called out as Willow opened the double doors. Take it easy with your voice, and if there are any problems, you come see me immediately. Yes, ma'am. Willow nodded obediently, for she and Faith stepped out into the corridor and hurried toward the briefing room. Red? Faith asked as they navigated the concrete hallways. What exactly is SG-1? That's one of the main frontline teams at the SGC, Willow explained, a wry smile touching her lips. Which basically means we're the ones who get into the most trouble and get shot at more than anyone else. I never thought you'd turn into a troublemaker, Faith smirked, nudging her playfully. You were always the good girl. Well, I try, Willow replied, punctuating the comment with a dramatic, theatrical flourish. General O'Neill's office, SGC. Jack? Daniel paused, his arms held out wide by his sides. Are you sure about this? Daniel? The general replied. Red trusts her, and the president has given his permission for this. But if it makes you feel any better, he still shares your skepticism about Faith. Exactly, Daniel countered. Come on, Jack. She was involved in kidnapping Willow. Frankly, her joining the SGC is like saying, you can do whatever bad stuff you want, but don't worry, you'll still be rewarded by joining up with humanity's great endeavor. Anyway, why are you so relaxed about this? Daniel, I trust Red's instincts about her, O'Neill insisted. He then looked over at Carter, who had her lips pressed tightly together. Carter? What you thinking about? General, Colonel Carter began, her tone measured. While I agree with you that this Faith character may be an asset to the SGC eventually, Daniel's right too. It still sets a bad precedent. Sir, you read her file. She's been in jail and has been in trouble since she was a kid. Carter, I just think that sometimes there's more to someone than just what's in their background checks, the general explained. I think we should hear her out, listen to her own words about her history, and then take it from there. O'Neill then turned his attention toward Teal'c, who was standing quietly next to the glass partition, keeping a lookout for Willow and Faith. T? Asked O'Neill, looking down at his desk and rubbing his forehead. You wanna add anything? I believe what you are doing is correct, O'Neill, Teal'c stated, causing Daniel and Carter to turn around in surprise. Seeing the looks on their faces, Teal'c allowed a small, knowing smile to show before continuing. When I was the first prime of Apophis, I committed many atrocities which were fully disclosed when I swore my allegiance to the Tauri, Teal'c reminded them. However, in spite of that, you allowed me to join SG-1 in the protection of this world. Do you not believe Faith Lehane deserves the same opportunity as I? You've already proved yourself many times over, Teal'c, Daniel argued, his voice softening. You earned our trust immediately after helping us escape during our first mission to Chulak. Do you not believe that Faith Lehane deserves the chance to earn our trust as well? Teal'c questioned calmly. Willow Rosenberg trusts her, and I believe that we should do the same. Trust is earned, Teal'c, Daniel muttered, still unconvinced. O'Neill, Teal'c interrupted, holding up a hand as he caught the sound of two female voices approaching the briefing room. They are here. Briefing room. As they stepped toward the briefing room, Willow could already sense the unease radiating from both Carter and Daniel. Oh boy, she thought to herself as they passed O'Neill's office and entered the briefing room proper, where O'Neill, Daniel, Carter, and Teal'c stood waiting. I don't think they like me much, Faith whispered, leaning into Willow after catching the suspicious glances shooting from both Carter and Daniel. Give them time, Faith, Willow murmured back reassuringly. Hey guys, Willow called out, giving SG-1 a small wave. Teal'c simply smiled and offered a respectful slight bow. Willow, Daniel greeted, stepping forward to give the redhead a warm embrace. Welcome back. Welcome back, Willow, the colonel added with a nod. Glad to be back, Daniel. Colonel? Willow replied before turning to face her companion. Faith Lehane, meet SG-1. SG-1, meet Faith. Faith watched as a large, muscular man with the golden emblem on his forehead stepped forward and inclined his head toward her. Faith Lehane, I am Teal'c. It is a pleasure to meet another female warrior of the Tauri. Thanks, I guess? Faith muttered, shifting nervously under his intense gaze. She then shifted her attention to the man wearing glasses and the blonde woman as they stepped forward. Hello, I'm Dr. Daniel Jackson. I'm Lieutenant Colonel Samantha Carter. Welcome to the SGC. Thanks, Faith said, trying to find her footing. From what Red told me, it's simply amazing what you people do here. Well, we try, O'Neill cracked with a dry smile. How about we all take a seat and start the briefing? Once everyone settled into their usual places, O'Neill at the head of the table, Daniel and Carter on one side, and Willow, Faith, and Teal'c on the other. O'Neill prepared to begin. However, he paused when he noticed Faith raising her hand. Yeah? O'Neill asked, gesturing toward her. What's a Tauri? Faith inquired, tilting her head. Teal'c here called me a warrior of the Tauri. So what's a Tauri? I think it would be better if we started from the beginning, O'Neill replied, leaning forward. But let's agree on something first. Okay, Faith said tentatively. You're being given full disclosure, the general replied, his expression turning serious as he locked eyes with her. Think of what you are about to hear as a sort of encouragement to stay on the straight and narrow, and to earn our trust. In return, we expect full disclosure from you. Faith nodded. Willow had warned her about this, and she hoped she was ready. More than that, she really hoped they were ready to hear her out. O'Neill continued, You have our guarantee that everything stated in this room about your past stays in this room. Nothing will be recorded, no notes will be taken, and no one outside of this group will know what you tell us. Basically, what you say will not leave this mountain. So, are we agreed? Full disclosure? Faith asked, her voice cracking slightly with nerves. Yeah, the general replied firmly. Now that she was coming face to face with revealing her past, a wave of anxiety washed over Faith. Willow immediately sensed her friend's unease. Glancing around to make sure no one was watching, she slipped her hand under the table and gave Faith's hand a light, supportive squeeze. You can trust them, Faith. Willow's gentle voice echoed directly in her mind. Hearing Willow's voice in her head allowed Faith to take a deep, stabilizing breath. She leaned forward and whispered, Alright, if Red trusts you, then I guess I should as well. But there are some parts that involve Buffy, and what I say shouldn't be used to further incriminate her. Agreed, the general promised. How about you start, Faith? Swallowing her pride, Faith began to recount her story, starting from her alcoholic parents to meeting her first watcher, Professor Dormer, who was brutally killed before her eyes by the ancient vampire Takistos. She then detailed her sudden arrival in Sunnydale. In between all that, Faith admitted, her eyes fixated on a scratch on the wooden table. I did some really bad things that I would really not like to make public. Okay, General O'Neill acknowledged quietly, sensing her genuine shame. Faith pressed on, opening up about meeting Buffy and the Scoobies, and then meeting her new watcher, Gwendolyn Post, who proceeded to gain and fiercely abuse her trust. She explained the truth behind the confrontation with the deputy mayor, which resulted in his accidental death, and her introduction to her third watcher, Wesley Wyndham Price, who later attempted to arrest her under the authority of the Watchers Council. Faith explained how she escaped their custody and fled straight into the arms of the mayor of Sunnydale. She confessed that she knew she had lost Buffy and the Scoobies as friends the moment they discovered she was working for the mayor, who just happened to be the secret big bad of Sunnydale. As Faith spoke, Willow could feel the overwhelming waves of loneliness, isolation, and anger crashing off her friend. Faith began to fidget restlessly as the air around her grew strangely volatile, shifting from freezing cold to burning hot in a repeating cycle. Willow glanced around the table, noticing that she was the only one who felt this strange, magical temperature fluctuation. Red? O'Neill asked, noticing the slightly fidgeting witch. You alright? Yes, sir, Willow murmured softly. Faith turned her head slightly. You alright? I can feel everything, Faith, Willow replied, her voice trembling. The memories of your loneliness, your anger, your isolation, everything. Want me to stop? Faith offered, a hint of vulnerability cracking her tough exterior. No, you should continue. We should know more. I want to know more. Willow insisted gently. Faith gave a quick glance and a small, appreciative smile toward Willow before continuing her story. She opened up to SG-1 about how the evil mayor had become a father figure to her, looking after her and genuinely caring for her. Closing her eyes, she recounted how she had killed two demons and a geology professor under his direct orders. She detailed how she had captured and kidnapped Willow when the witch was snooping around the mayor's office, admitting bluntly that she had intended to kill her. That plan was only halted when the Scoobies returned an important item belonging to the mayor. Upon hearing about Willow's previous kidnapping, the members of SG-1 and O'Neill stared at Willow, who cringed slightly in her seat. Under the table, Willow felt an immense wave of sadness and regret radiating from Faith as the Slayer recounted that dark memory. I remember, Willow whispered softly. I said that you would always be alone, friendless, and a big, selfish, worthless waste. Yeah, Faith sighed, her tough facade slipping. You stood up to me, but I still hurt you. Faith then shifted the narrative, explaining how she used a poison arrow in an attempt to kill Angel, which ultimately led to Buffy storming her apartment to claim her blood. Hold on, Daniel interrupted as Willow looked at Faith in confusion. Why your blood? The only antidote for that poison is the blood of a Slayer. My blood, Faith clarified quietly. Why couldn't Buffy use her own blood? Carter inquired, leaning forward. She is also a Slayer, right? She wanted to get all my blood, Faith emphasized, placing a heavy, chilling weight on the word all. The others immediately understood the grim implication. She described how she and Buffy, the only two Slayers on Earth, had come to blows before Buffy stabbed her in the abdomen with the very knife the mayor had given Faith as a gift. She recounted escaping by jumping onto a moving truck, only to fall into a coma due to severe head injuries and massive blood loss. And you got out of your coma after I left Sunnydale, Willow noted. Yeah, it was months later, Faith recalled, a trace of cynicism creeping into her tone. And then I learned that Buffy was already with another guy. The vampire boyfriend she almost killed me for wasn't even in the picture anymore. It's actually kind of funny when you think about it. But in the quiet briefing room, no one laughed. O'Neill closed his eyes, leaning back heavily in his chair while Daniel and Carter stared down at the table in uncomfortable silence. Teal'c, however, watched Faith with deep sorrow in his eyes, profoundly moved by everything the young woman had endured throughout her life. Feeling the heavy atmosphere, Willow squeezed Faith's hand under the table as the Slayer stopped to breathe deeply. Faith then confessed that after waking from the coma, she sought revenge on Buffy by switching bodies with her. Done that already, O'Neill grumbled under his breath. Wasn't fun at all. Huh? Faith blinked, looking thoroughly confused. Long story, Daniel interjected quickly. Please continue. She resumed her story, explaining that while Buffy was trapped in her body, Faith was kidnapped by the Watchers Council's Special Operations Team to be forcibly taken back to England. While I was in Buffy's body, I flirted with another vampire. Spike? Willow asked, tracking the timeline. Yeah, Faith nodded. And then I slept with her boyfriend while in her body. I mean, I felt betrayed by everyone around me, and all I could think of was revenge, and how to best ruin Buffy's reputation. She went on to describe the group of churchgoers she had saved from a vampire hostage situation, admitting she was almost killed until Buffy intervened and saved her. When I faced Buffy, who was in my original body, I just lunged at her. I beat her. I beat my own body savagely because I hated myself for everything I had become and everything I had lost. Eventually, Tara managed to undo the spell, and I got back into my own body, which was already heavily injured. Buffy was hurt too, and I took the chance to get out of Sunnydale and head to LA. That's where Angel helped me. He believed in me, and he never gave up on me, finding the good in myself. Eventually, Buffy came to LA seeking revenge, Faith added, noticing Willow's surprised expression. But she didn't succeed, obviously. I did, however, give myself up to the LAPD so that I could face the consequences of my actions. And the rest, as they say, is history. Willow could sense that the hostility she had previously felt from Daniel and Colonel Carter had vanished almost completely by the time Faith finished her story. Daniel had already shared his own troubled upbringing, recounting how he lost his parents in an accident at the New York Museum of Art, and how his grandfather's refusal to adopt him left him stranded in a foster care system. Colonel Carter had lost her mother as a child and blamed her father for the tragedy. O'Neill had endured the loss of his son, a grief that ultimately cost him his marriage to Sarah. Teal'c, meanwhile, had sacrificed everything to aid the Tauri in their war against the Goa'uld and to fight for the freedom of all Jaffa. Reflecting on them, Willow felt the weight of her own grueling battle against the addictive pull of magic. Willow glanced around at the general and the others, sensing they were all sharing the same quiet realization. Every member of SG-1 seated at the table carried deep emotional scars, but that shared brokenness was exactly what bound them together as a family. "Where's the restroom?" Faith asked, rubbing at her exhausted face with both hands to wake herself up. "Sir," Willow offered, turning to O'Neill, "I can escort her." "Go ahead, Red," the general approved with a slight nod. The team rose politely as Willow guided Faith out toward the restroom at the far end of the corridor, leaving the remaining members of SG-1 to settle back into their chairs in the briefing room. I really don't know what to say," Daniel murmured, genuinely lost for words as he stared at the tabletop. "Faith Lehane has endured much hardship for a young woman," Teal'c observed, his deep voice heavy with solemn respect. "Sir," Carter began, her tone softened by regret. "Carter?" O'Neill prompted, looking over at her. "I was wrong," she admitted openly. "She needs a stable environment and people who can look after her well-being. The SGC can also provide her with the counseling she needs to work through those lingering issues. Right, Jack?" Daniel suggested, looking to his friend for agreement. "Yeah," the general agreed quietly. He remained visibly stunned by Faith's story, his emotions fracturing between intense anger at the circumstances that had abandoned her and profound sorrow for everything she had endured in Sunnydale. A little more than 10 minutes later, Willow and Faith returned to find the members of SG-1 still steeped in quiet contemplation. "Faith," O'Neill began, taking a steadying breath. "Thanks for telling us about your history. It was brave of you and enlightening for us." Faith pressed her lips tightly together before offering a tense nod. O'Neill leaned forward over the table. "And, as I promised, we're going to give you full disclosure on the Stargate program. It's actually how we acquired the technology to fix Red's injury." "Daniel?" O'Neill called out, gesturing toward him. "Jack? You're the resident archaeologist here, so maybe you should take lead on this," the general suggested. "All right," Daniel complied, leaning forward enthusiastically. "In 1928, a group of archaeologists discovered an ancient ring-shaped device on the Giza Plateau in Egypt. By 1995, we discovered that it was actually a device capable of instant transportation to other planets." "What?" Faith asked, her jaw dropping in surprise. "How?" "Through the use of a subspace wormhole that connects one Stargate to a corresponding device in this galaxy," the Colonel explained thoroughly. "So, that means," Faith started, only to be interrupted by a smiling Willow. "We can go anywhere in the galaxy as long as there is a Stargate on that planet," Willow finished, while Faith stared at her in utter disbelief. Daniel dived deeper into the history of the Stargate, detailing the program's origins, his initial role in cracking the code, and the years their teams had spent exploring the galaxy. Faith listened intently as the narrative passed from Daniel to Carter, then to O'Neill, Teal'c, and Willow. Over the next few hours, Faith learned about the existential threats of the Goa'uld and the Replicators, as well as their advanced allies, the Ancients, and the Asgard. Willow even chimed in to explain that Teal'c was a Jafar, hailing from a world called Chulak. Man, Faith whistled, turning toward Willow once the briefing finally concluded. Her friend simply shrugged. Faith spun her swiveling chair around to face the officers across from her, locking eyes with O'Neill. Wow, was all she could manage as she leaned back. She looked over at Daniel and Carter, breathing out another stunned, wow. Turning her gaze to Teal'c, she offered a simpler, cool. Finally, she looked back at Willow and admitted, wow, this whole thing just blew my mind. There was an overwhelming amount of information to process from just the past few hours. As if O'Neill could read her mind, he clapped his hands together loudly. How about we stop for today? O'Neill suggested, rising from his chair. I think we've told you everything there is to know about the gate on paper. How about we actually show it to you? Carter? Yes, sir. Carter replied, standing up to step over to the wall at the end of the room, where she pressed a prominent red button. The rest of the group slowly stood and moved toward the glass as the heavy metal blast shield began grinding upward. Come on, Faith, Willow urged, gesturing toward the opening view. You're about to see the best sight in this entire facility. Faith approached the glass alongside Willow, her eyes widening as she looked down to the embarkation room. There, standing silent and majestic at the end of a long steel ramp, was a massive, ring-shaped metallic device. So that's the Stargate, Faith murmured softly, captivated by the sight. It is? O'Neill confirmed, standing just behind her. What's it like? Faith inquired, keeping her eyes fixed on the ring. Going through it, I mean. Like taking a step into another room, Carter described with a warm smile. But in reality, you will have traveled thousands of light years in an instant. Daniel was the one who figured out that the glyphs along the inner ring are actually star constellations. The general added proudly. They form a three-dimensional coordinate system. Carter expanded. You need 6 points of reference for the destination and the seventh as the point of origin. If the address is valid, an artificial subspace wormhole forms between the two gates. Now I get why you said you love your job, Red, Faith chuckled, lightly punching Willow's arm before gesturing broadly at the surroundings and then down at the ring. Who would ever want to leave all of this behind? Can I go through? Faith asked, turning an eager gaze towards the general. Earn our trust, O'Neill answered directly, though his tone was encouraging. Pass your psyche vials, follow instructions, and yeah, one day, definitely. Cool, Faith whispered. Her voice carried a newfound sense of wonder as she imagined herself stepping through the event horizon to another world. In the meantime, you should head back to your quarters and rest up, because your training starts tomorrow. You'll be scheduled with Teal'c for some hand-to-hand and weapons drills, followed by your first psychological eval, O'Neill outlined. Faith could only nod, her gratitude apparent as she looked over at Willow. Thanks again, she whispered sincerely, for giving me this chance. Willow smiled warmly in return. Once the remaining members of SG-1 offered their farewells and departed for their respective duties, Faith leaned sideways toward Willow. Okay, I am officially impressed, and definitely excited. Remembering their previous wager at the NID, Willow grinned and whispered, and dinner is on you. Faith chuckled as the both of them turned to exit the briefing room, stepping out into the hallway. I guess a bet's a bet. I have no idea what's good around here though, so you choose the place. Willow nodded happily. Huh, that reminds me, I need to start searching for a new apartment since Dawn's going to be staying with us. She shrugged lightheartedly, but I can get that done tomorrow. To be continued.